Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us at Financial Issues. Financial Issues is a stewardship ministry. Our ministry is to minister to the saints of the church, to believers, to teach you about stewardship issues, about our calling, our privilege to serve God with our time, talent, and resources. Then that includes your financial resources. So we teach you how to honor God in the way that you invest. We call that defunding darkness. We give you a biblically responsible investment strategy that you can learn and adopt if you become a partner with our ministry. And we encourage you to not only defund darkness, but to fund the light, to be a joyful and generous giver. Well, we call ourselves here at Financial Issues the financiers of the kingdom. So kingdom work costs money. You know, money's neutral. It's just a medium. It takes money to do good, and it takes money to do evil. So we help educate you and remind you about our privilege to give. It's not a responsibility. It is a responsibility, but it is more of a privilege and honor to be able to participate with God in the work that He does in the earth. So on today's show, we're going to show you how to do some creative giving with what's called a qualified charitable distribution, or a QCD. We're going to answer some of your questions, and then later in the show, Twyla Brace is going to join us to talk about freedom in the area of our healthcare. So Twyla always has such great information to share with our audience. We know that you love her, and we do too. Our stewardship verse today comes from Psalm 37:26. He is ever lending generously, and his children become a blessing. Man, that's a promise I'd like to cash in on. So the he here is the righteous. So those who have put their faith and their trust in Jesus Christ, have asked for forgiveness of their sins and accepted Jesus' sacrifice for that forgiveness and made Jesus Lord of their lives. Those are the righteous. Those who, and if you've never done that, you can find out how to do it by going to our webpage, financialissues.org, clicking on the resources tab and clicking on, do you want to know God? But this verse emphasizes the virtues of generosity and kindness. It suggests that those who practice these qualities will see their children become a blessing to others. The verse highlights a principle, the principle in the biblical principle of reciprocity, that's reaping and sowing, and the blessing associated with righteous living. What do you think, Seth?
It's good, Shanna. It's really good. This verse is referring to the righteous man, of course, how his heart is always open to generosity. You know, he always has a bent towards generosity. This generosity produces blessing, and it's not just for him, but it's for the generations afterward. I love how the scripture talks about that, Shanna. It's that when we're obedient to God, it doesn't just impact us now, but it actually has an equally great impact to the third and fourth generation and beyond. And you can see that when you look at parents who are faithful and grandparents who are faithful. Oftentimes what happens is you see the reciprocal blessings in their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And that's a biblical concept. So I hope that we would do the same and partake in this great generational blessing here. It's good stuff. Yeah. Now, Shanna, for our topic of the day, as you know, we're in our year-end campaign, and we're talking about alternative ways to give this week. I wanted to ask you about the Qualified Charitable Distribution, the QCD. Could you just remind our listeners what a QCD is and how it works, how it might be a good alternative way to give, and maybe just give to the FISM campaign as your choice? How would they do that?
Yeah, so a qualified charitable distribution is a distribution that is given directly from your IRA account, your traditional IRA account, and you can qualify to do that when you're at least 70 and a half years of age. I don't know why they do the half, but
yeah,
I guess it's to complicate things. But yeah, you can give directly from your IRA to a nonprofit organization, and as long as you report it correctly on your tax return, that distribution will not be taxed.
Awesome. And then what about a QCD that makes it qualified? It's a qualified charitable distribution. Why is it qualified?
Because the government said so.
Great.
Right. No, seriously.
Yeah.
The Pension Protection Act of 2006 created the Qualified Charitable Distribution. For short, we call it a QCD. Sometimes it's called a charitable rollover as well. But it allows owners that are at least 70 and a half years of age the ability to distribute directly to certain public charities up to $100,000 a year without having to pay taxes on that distribution. And then in 2015, the Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes Act. I wish that was a true thing.
Yeah, right.
Maybe we need to reinstitute that law. Probably not what it says it is.
There you go.
Just like most laws out there.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah,
exactly.
But we digress. In 2015, the Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes Act extended the original law to make those qualified charitable distributions exist and made permanent the qualified charitable distributions. Now, like all laws, they can still be changed by Congress, but making it permanent and extending it just means that they don't have to keep renewing it. It doesn't expire and revert to what was there before.
Got it. Okay. And then for the QCD, Shanna, what advantages does it offer for the investor?
Well, zero tax rate. That is better than any other tax rate, in case you were having trouble figuring out what's better than zero taxes. Nothing. So you now have, if you do this charitable distribution, qualified charitable distribution, and you do your giving from your IRA, well, you now have increased cash flow because your giving doesn't have to be done with the money that was coming in and probably being taxed already. So you can either have increased cash flow or, if you were taking money out of your IRA to do your giving, now the good news is that you get to do that in a tax-free kind of way. You also can potentially avoid having taxes due on your Social Security. So there's an income limit for Social Security. If you make over a certain amount of other income, then your Social Security becomes taxable. Either 50% of it or up to 85% of your Social Security can become taxable. So if you're taking distributions out of your IRA, especially if you're taking them out just to do giving, now you can just change the way that you're doing it. It's still really easy to do. Just do it a different way, and then you can avoid the income taxes on those distribution. And maybe if your other income is low enough, avoid paying Social Security on your taxes on your Social Security.
Yeah, good. And then what about some specific things that we might need to know with this method of giving? Age ranges, types of accounts, limits. Is this type of giving available to anyone?
No, not quite. So anyone that is a certain age. And so if the age again is 70 and a half, now 70 and a half also used to be the age when you are required to start taking minimum distributions from your IRA account. That age has been ratcheted up. The age is now 73. But you can still do the qualified charitable distribution at age 70 and a half. So what you know is if you are 73, if you have a required minimum distribution, doing these qualified charitable distributions does count as your required minimum distribution. You also must make sure that you report the distribution correctly on your tax return to avoid taxability. So it's usually somewhere around line 4 if you're using a 1040. There's a place where you can put in your taxable income, which is reported on a 1099. You'll get a 1099 from whoever holds your IRA, and that's going to report every distribution you made, even the qualified charitable distributions, because they don't really, it's not their job to see where the money's going and know if it's going to a nonprofit or not. So in that next line over 4A, 4B, it asks you how much of that distribution was taxable. And there's where you report it there so that you don't have to pay taxes on that distribution. Now, you are the one that must retain proof and make sure that you're meeting the qualifications for that. So typically you get some kind of letter from your custodian that shows the amount of the distribution, the date, and where it went. So you'll just want to keep that on file in case you ever get questioned by the IRS. You also have to know that you can't count it twice. So you can't report it on that line and then count it again in itemized deductions. You have to pick one. And there's also one other thing that you can do. You can do a one-time distribution of up to $53,000 for the QCD to make a donation to a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust. So that is something new that's just happened in the last couple of years. Well, folks, we have to take a break right now, but we've got more financial issues to come. We hope that you're going to stick around with us and go to our website or get on your brokerage and make a qualified distribution for financial issues for our year-end campaign.
On the day I found I was pregnant, I was full of emotions and I just was so overwhelmed, and I don't know if I'm ready for this huge life-altering, changing commitment. I had individuals around me not wanting me to have this child. And somehow, and I was driving and I saw the Women's Help Center sign and I immediately turned in. That just took relief off of me. And I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. They gave me the confidence and the support that I needed to be able to go out and face the world. First time I held Finnegan, I just lit up with joy. I was so excited. This little boy that I had in my life, he is loving and generous. Watching him just grow and flourish into this incredible human being has just been so rewarding and so uplifting. Looking back, I don't know what I would do without him because I needed him more than I think he needed me.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plan to learn more about Timothy Plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everyone. Hey, I do hope that you will join us for our year-end campaign, Compounding Impact. We want to make a compounding impact in our culture here. So if you go to financialissues.org/impact, financialissues.org/impact, that'll take you right to the landing page where you can learn more how to give. And Shanna, we do need to make an impact in our culture because our culture is quite literally going to hell, and we need the gospel. There was an article that I saw here from the Christian Post, just really troubling, that the Biden administration is funding a play, so like a performance with the Hermaphrodite Angels is what this group is called, to promote LGBTQ ideology. So the Biden had been spending tens of thousands of U.S. tax dollars to help a theater group produce this play in North Macedonia. State Department approved $20,000 federal funds, $10,500 non-federal funds for a production of a play called Angels in America, a gay fantasia on national themes in the European nation. The department said that the play will help, quote, raise awareness about HIV stigma and LGBTQ plus issues. Shanna, this is really just disturbing. And it really is sad. We can add this, though, to our list of brilliant uses of government funding. I know we've talked about the Michelle Obama trails in the past. Well, here's another one. Homosexual plays, apparently, is what it is. It's ridiculous.
Is this really real?
Yeah,
Is this really real?
Crazy. It just really is.
Huh. So what heading does this fall under? To form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. It doesn't seem to fit under any category.
Yeah, I don't think
to
so.
me. It's not even benefiting, or it's not even targeted towards American citizens. I mean, that just sounds preposterous. Everything about it totally sounds preposterous. So if you paid taxes, congratulations. You're the proud underwriter of artistic garbage that promotes an evil agenda to foreigners. Recently saw an interview, or not an interview, but a piece that CNBC did about Trump's tax cut proposals, and they were kind of breaking it down, and they were saying that they called it Trump's $10 trillion tax giveaway, and they said that his plan to exempt tips from taxes would cost the government $200 billion, that ending the tax on Social Security would cost the government $1.6 trillion, that exempting overtime pay from taxation would cost the government $1.8 trillion, a lower corporate tax rate would cost the government $700 billion, and the SALT tax reversal would cost the government $1.2 trillion. For a total of $10 trillion, and that his tariffs would probably only bring in $2.8 trillion, so it was going to skyrocket our debt even further. Now, I'll just say this. I agree with very few of the things that he's proposing there. I do agree with the lower corporate tax rate, but, some of those other things they're not right. I hate it that feels like he's having to try to buy votes by doing these things. And, Kamala Harris is chiming in and kind of saying that they want to do the same thing. So they're really just, fighting over votes. But what I really hate right here is how they're saying that it's going to cost the government if we reduce these taxes. So, do you see that twist on it? It's not paying taxes to the government means that the government trusts Americans to make decisions about how we spend our own money that God gave us. And just trust that if it's really something great to put on this horrific play that they're putting on in a foreign country, that if somebody doesn't have to pay taxes, that they're going to step up and fund that project. Trusting Americans to make decisions about how we spend our own money is the issue here. It is just ridiculous. I know it's only a couple of $1,000s, and that's like less than half a cent comparison to us. But it's this kind of thinking, it's this kind of garbage that has added up to more than $35 trillion in debt right now. And it's not the government's money. The money is money that they get from Americans in the form of taxes. And so, it's just ridiculous. And we bought into it. Yeah. We've bought into it. We bought into, we're going to pay our taxes, and we're going to let the government make these stupid decisions and not hold them accountable for it.
Amen. And Shanna, you're exactly right. It's not a lot of money. It's really not. But the idea is very dangerous. They're gonna do this with $10,000. They're also gonna do it with $10 trillion too. It's the same heart behind it. What you do with the little things. That's going to impact. Yeah, it's similar to if you have children, and you're harsh with them and you treat them harshly. It's no surprise then if you're a boss and you treat your employees the exact same way. It's the same as this. It really is stupid. I agree with you completely.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yeah. Craziness.
Absolutely. Right. Lord Jesus, come soon. Well, you want to do a palate cleanser, Shannon, and get to some questions here?
Yeah.
Let's start with Michael, age 56. Michael would love to join the show with a call, but he lives in Hawaii. So enough said. Michael, we give you a free pass, brother. We understand. Hope you're enjoying the sunshine. He says, my cash portion of both my traditional and Roth are not in money market accounts. Should all of my cash be in a money market, or would this be considered a fixed income portion of my asset allocation? Love you guys. Listen every day through the app. Thank you for the encouragement and support to becoming BRI and a joyful giver. And then he says mahalo, which I think means hello or goodbye in Hawaiian.
It does.
Pretty cool. That's awesome. And it's good that he has the app too, because I don't think we're on any stations in Hawaii.
Oh no, I don't know. Maybe
I don't know.
Some of the
maybe
CSN.
we are. Oh, maybe we are. Yeah. Yep. That is true.
Good. Well, Michael, we'd love to know how you found us.
Yeah.
And make sure that you have the app. That's probably how you're hearing us.
Yes.
So your cash allocations really should be held in a money market. Most brokerages default to a certain money market. If yours doesn't default to a money market account, then you should probably just ask support on whatever brokerage platform you're on to change that for you. You can change the default there. So the money market will tend to pay a little bit higher than maybe just a cash type of account. You could argue that money market, when it's earning 5%, is comparable to fixed income because, the long-term average for fixed income investments is around 5%. So I guess you could consider it fixed income, but money market rates really money market really does belong in the cash allocation of the portfolio. If you've used it as fixed income up to this point, it's probably not a bad thing if it was earning 5%, but rates are going to start, money market rates are going to start falling in short order now that the Fed is actually cutting rates and cutting pretty aggressively. So when I checked recently, money market was, at least our money market was still paying 4.8%, but we're going to start to see that decline. So reclassify it as just cash. And if that makes you heavy in cash, and there's some things on the buy list that you can reallocate to, go ahead and do that.
Awesome. By the way, speaking of Michael's location, if we do have any listeners in Hawaii, give us a shout out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Marilyn is up next here, Shanna. Has a question. She's asked a similar question before on behalf of her daughter, who's 43. There's about $4,500 she has invested for her daughter, who's 43 years old. This has grown to about $8,000 in the last 4 to 5 years. Her daughter's contributing to an IRA through her work, but it's not likely to be able to add to this investment anytime soon. So she's asking, how do I balance her portfolio with only $8,000 to work without each stock each stock holding being so small? So not a lot of money to invest. How does she make the most of it?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily worry about the holdings being too small. When you're working with a portfolio, the best thing to do is to work with percentages. So that's why you'll notice that our asset allocation models are all percentages. So you could reduce the number of holdings in each category. So you could just, make sure that you have at least one holding in each of the sectors. You could also consider eliminating some of the fund or ETF positions if you just want to have the individual positions. But as you can see there, you started with 4,500, it's grown to 8,000. So, as it grows, now you can start to, pare back some of your positions and get others. So the next time that it goes from 8,000 to 16,000, that's going to give you more money. You can then start to trim some off of the positions that you have and add until you get to that, fully recommended portfolio.
Awesome. Dave is up next here, Shanna, 63 years old. He said, I went to purchase one of the preferred stocks, FP83, through the Fidelity platform. It wanted me to sign a designated investment agreement. After I read through this as a pretty new investor, it made me kind of nervous. How common is an agreement like this, and is it really something to be worried about? I'm sure the stock was well vetted, but it still made me question the reason for the agreement. I might be in the same position if I saw something like that, Shanna. What advice would you have for Dave?
So it probably happened because that particular company is an MLP or Master Limited Partnership. I would just say read through the disclosure. I'm not familiar with that particular disclosure, but if you have to, give them a call and just ask them what it's about. But I'm sure it's about the company being an MLP, that you could get a K1 instead of a 1099, that it might have some extra tax reporting to do with it if it generates over a certain amount of money for you, but I wouldn't be overly concerned.
Awesome. And last one for this segment, Shanna. Leslie has a mom who's 71 years old. Husband recently passed, has $460,000 in a variable lifetime annuity, $316,000 in a money market savings account, selling off home for about $280,000, no other debt. How would you invest these funds to best preserve principal and fund her health care? What would you think?
Yeah, so if you want to preserve principal, you're really limited to cash, money market, CDs, government treasuries. Those are really the only preservation type instruments that you can get. But what I would suggest is that you need to consider adding some equities in for growth. It doesn't have to be a large percentage of the portfolio if preservation is your primary goal. Maybe you want to have 70 or 80% in those really preservation type of assets. But inflation is a problem. It's been around. It's going to be around. And the antidote for inflation is equities. And you're going to need some growth for the future. All right, folks. If you're listening to an outlet that only carries the short version of the show, we wish you a farewell. We hope that you have the phone app so that you can get all of the versions for all of the shows for free when you can listen. For the rest of you, stick around. We'll be back with more financial issues.
Noah surrendered to the radical call to build an ark. Abraham had to leave his friends and family and the place where he lived to experience what God had for him. Both Abraham and Noah had a choice to be obedient. Will you abandon investments in your portfolio that support abortion, gambling, and pornography? Learn how you can invest biblically and abandon investments that dishonor God. Become a Financial Issues partner today. Go to financialissues.org/join to learn more.
Hi, this is Sheena Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
Today, it's easy to get caught up in the rush and forget about what really matters. But when it comes to your money, are you making decisions that truly reflect your values? Too often, we invest in stocks without knowing what they stand for. What if your money could speak for what you believe in? Imagine following an investment strategy that recommends companies that don't support the things that break the heart of the Lord. A steadfast strategy, never wavering from biblical truth. When your investments align with your values, your money speaks for you. Let your money do the talking. Invest in what matters to you. Because biblical values matter, even when investing. Visit financialissues.org to learn more. That's financialissues.org.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on the show. As Shanna mentioned earlier on, got a special guest for you here. We'll get right to her. Twyla Braze, president and co-founder of CCH Freedom, a dear friend of the ministry. Twyla, welcome back. It's great to have you on with me once again.
Well, it's always great to be with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, Twyla, I want to just ask you as we start here, we're in the midst of our year-end campaign, and I just wanted to hear your thoughts of what the ministry of FISM means to you and what it means to you to know that we're partnered in this fight together to defend all of our freedoms, financial freedoms and health freedoms as well. What does this mean to you?
Well, FISM is a good friend of our ministry, and so just looking at everything that you do to bring the message to Americans across, and not only, you do it for financial, right? But the fact of the matter is that you bring in and allow us to talk about the healthcare freedoms that are at risk around the country and let people know the things that the media is not talking about. That's such a valuable service to your people. It's a valuable service to anyone in the entire country. And we cannot thank you enough for letting our voice be heard with your listeners and for them, because we know that they are actively engaged. And what a wonderful thing to have a group of people actively engaged for freedom and at the financial level to protect themselves and to have their dollars available for things that they support, not what the government and others want them to use those dollars for.
That's awesome. Twyla, thank you so much. And let me ask you this also just really quickly here. What success have you guys seen this past year? Obviously, your success is our success, and so we want to be able to cheer you guys on and promote that. Just kind of give us a quick update. We've had you on each month. Give us a quick recap of some of the great things that you guys have seen and the strides that you've made in the fight for health freedom this past year.
Well, we're working on something that's about to come out, and we hope that will be a huge success of our work that we've been doing for the last year, and that is our Medicare handbook. And I think that all of your people should get it. But in addition to that, we have really been working on with a lot of states. So legislators in states like Idaho, and there's like 8 or 9 states: Arkansas, Alabama, Oregon. I know it's a bunch, but it's a bunch of different kinds of legislation that they're looking at, like laws to make sure that the World Health Organization, HHS, and CDC can't come in and control the state. There's laws to implement a real privacy law. I think that one is in Alabama. I think that one's, in New Hampshire. That one is also moving forward there. We went to testify on that in February. So just the fact that by even the support of some of your listeners, we are able to take a trip like to New Hampshire where the legislature won't pay for it, but we have to pay for it. But what a difference it will make if we can get that law passed, because we had the hearings, we testified for it, we have a really strong author. What a difference that will make if we actually get the strongest medical privacy law in the nation to be passed in New Hampshire, and then hopefully to go on from there for state by state by state, because HIPAA doesn't protect your privacy, and you need a real strong law to do that at the state level.
Awesome. You guys doing some great work, Twyla. Keep it up. Hey, tell our listeners also, you have an event coming up October the 3rd in your home state of Minnesota. I was going to say Minneapolis, Minnesota. What is this event about? How can we sign up? When's the deadline for it?
So it's our annual fundraising event. It's going to be a very exciting evening. It's called Physician on Fire. We have Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, who successfully sued the FDA for practicing medicine when they prohibited access to ivermectin. And we have a bunch of surprises for people who have been to our events before. And we know that we have people coming from different states. So we welcome all of you to come. The deadline is this Friday. You can go to cchfreedom.org, our website, and sign up there.
Awesome. And Twyla, you had mentioned that Medicare handbook too. Is that live on your website now, or is that something that's still in the works?
It's still in the works.
Okay.
We're waiting for several things, including the new prices for 2025.
Yep. Very good. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. I'm sure you'll tell us more about that as that comes up. Let's get to some hot button issues of the day, Twyla. There's a big one there's this Real ID proposal rule in the works. Can you give our listeners a taste of what this is, how potentially dangerous it could be, and what we need to do about it?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask everyone who's listening to like pull out your wallet, get your purse, whatever, and see if you have this card in your purse. In the meantime, anybody who doesn't have a card with a star on, they often call it the gold star card. In the meantime, everybody should consider just going online and commenting. The Real ID is a federal identification card. Legislators in Missouri and Pennsylvania, they said that it was a usurpation of states' rights, and indeed it is. It's essentially going to be a card that gives the federal government control over identification, movement, driving, and all sorts of other official purposes as determined by the Secretary of Homeland Security. So really what you should be thinking of is the Chinese social credit system. They want to put this ID then on your phone and have it remotely controllable. So when they did this in 2005, about 3 years later, when they put out a rule to impose it across the country, state legislatures, about 37 of them, actually stood up and put it in law that they would not comply. But then when the Obama administration did the lie, the you can't fly lie, all the legislators basically caved and decided to comply with this. But it is unconstitutional, and everyone listening here should go onto our website, cchfreedom.org, and right there on the homepage, you just click the black box, and that will take you to the 2 links that you can use to comment. And the most important thing that you can say legally and at a regulatory framework is to say that this is unconstitutional. It's against your private and the state's rights. But the most important word is to say Real ID is unconstitutional. And then we can use that in a variety of ways as we go forward. But the deadline is Tuesday, October 15th. We need at least 50,000 comments coming in to the TSA about this terrible rule. And like I said, they plan to do progressive enforcement. They plan to inflict pain on the 110 million Americans that do not yet have a Real ID, that have not yet complied. They want to make you comply. And then the other thing you should do is tell your state legislators to stop or to repeal the law that conforms with Real ID. This was such a violation. When they take an oath of office and they say that, they will stand up against enemies, foreign and domestic, this is domestic enemy number 1. This is the net coming in from the federal government to control all the citizens in this country. And then to use the phone, to put it on the phone eventually, and control it remotely. So everybody, I don't care whether you have that card or you don't have that card, go on to the website and say, Real ID is unconstitutional. You have no right to enforce it. And we just, like I said, we need everybody who's listening to do it now. There's less than 3 weeks for the deadline. I really think that they put this out right during the election campaign to try to make sure very few people would actually actively engage on this, but we need you all to do it.
That's awesome. Twyla, as you were talking, I just went on and in all caps, I wrote Real ID is unconstitutional. Folks, do that right now. Twyla, thank you for telling us about this. Boy, that is really scary stuff. And we need to not only pray, but use our voices, as you just gave us the opportunity to make sure that this doesn't happen. So
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, make sure that you do that right now. CCHfreedom.org. It's very easy. Just click on that there. Twyla, with the time that we have left here, anything else that we need to know about in the world of health today? We're seeing rising monkeypox cases as well as everyone's talking about COVID cases coming back. We can trust you. We can't trust the media. So we're trusting you. What do we really need to know about this stuff?
Well, I think everything that you need to know is that you should really think twice about any kind of so-called vaccine. This is really gene therapy that you're taking. They don't have any idea what's going to happen. They don't have any idea for the long run what's going to happen. We have all these sudden deaths. And I think maybe a statistic, if I haven't told your listeners it yet, is that every time you get a shot, a COVID shot, you are putting somewhere between 13 and 40 trillion messenger RNA molecules into your body. And if they get into your cells, they can make 10 to 100 spike proteins, which is the toxic part of COVID. And you have 30 to 40 trillion cells in your body. So just do the math. Right. And we don't have any idea how long spike protein stays there. They can't control how long the messenger RNA actually makes the spike protein. And so this is something that people who are thinking about their health and their life and their longevity should really think twice about. And I guess the last thing I'd say is a reminder that the Cleveland Clinic did a study on all their 52,000 employees, and they found that the more COVID shots they got, the higher was their risk of getting COVID. And even though COVID is pretty mild at the moment, it is still a clotting disease. It's still a clotting disease.
Yep. Twyla, thank you for all that information. We are so blessed to have you as a dear friend of our ministry and continual guest on our show. I love getting to interview you every time we do it. I'm looking forward to the next time. Folks, that's Twyla Braze, president and co-founder, CCH Freedom. Check them out, cchfreedom.org, cchfreedom.org. We'll be right back after this break.
In a world where financial decisions can feel overwhelming, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But what if there is a way to align your financial goals with your deepest values? Financial Issues has helped us navigate the complex world of finance through a biblical lens. By prioritizing and investing in a way that honors God, Financial Issues has empowered us to focus on what truly matters: our family, our faith, and our future. With Financial Issues by our side, we can invest knowing that our financial decisions are in line with our values. Take the first step today and become a Financial Issues partner to access rich online resources, training tools, and guidance for biblically responsible investing. Head over to financialissues.org and learn how to invest your money in a way that honors God. That's financialissues.org.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Hey folks, I do hope that interview with Twyla encouraged you. I know some of you have questions there in the chat. I see Dave and Darlene is asking what happens if I have a real ID. So for you guys, D&D, I just asked Twyla this during the break. And there's nothing wrong with accidentally losing your ID and getting a different one. So if you need to put it down the garbage disposal or flush it down the toilet or cut it up, you can do any of that stuff and then go through the process again. That should be the way that you can get it in such a way that you don't have that gold star there. So I'll follow up with Twyla if you have any more questions about that. I know some of you had said that your state's already implemented it. And folks, that's where, we just have to, as a nation, keep on fighting, making sure our trust is in Jesus, of course, but also making sure that we're using the freedoms that we still have for good for ourselves and for our future generations as well. So I hope that was beneficial for you. We'll have Twyla back on soon to talk more about that. Let's get to the markets real quickly here. So they seem to settle down a bit after the Fed's announcement last week They rose moderately yesterday thanks to some fresh gains from the tech darling NVIDIA back up on top once again. So by midday, all three indices comfortably in front. And by the closing bell yesterday, the Dow Jones was up 0.5%, the S&P 500 was up 0.25%, and the NASDAQ was up over 0.5%. The markets this morning, as we sit 20 minutes into the trading day, somewhat mixed. Dow's down a little bit, S&P 500's up a little bit, NASDAQ's up a little bit more. So that's what we're looking like Wednesday morning as we look at the markets. Let's get to our ag report now, folks. Craig Haugard giving us what we need to know with the ag world. Here is Craig Haugard.
This is Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for September 25th. Well, the U.S. corn crop has very few secrets left at this point. The crop is 14% harvested and is right now rated at 65% good to excellent. Now, compared to the last 25 years, this is the 8th best rated crop of those years. With one exception, all of those other crops came in above trendline yields. And expected that will be the case with this crop as well. As a result, December corn was a touch lower yesterday, down a penny and 3/4 at $4.11 and 3/4 per bushel. The trade's also feeling pretty comfortable with the U.S. Soybean crop situation and not extremely worried yet about the upcoming South American crop. The U.S. bean crop is 13% harvested and has a good to excellent rating of 64%. Now, if you look at the last 25 years, this is the 5th best rated crop on record. We've never seen a year with a below trendline yield when the crop was rated 63% or better, and we're not going to see it this year either. Yesterday's close had November beans 3 cents higher at $10.42 1/4. Some traders are concerned about the wheat crops in Argentina and the Black Sea region, but those concerns took a back seat yesterday in the face of ample domestic and world supplies. We had Minneapolis December wheat 7 1/4 lower at $6.11 3/4. Kansas City dropped by 6 1/4 cents to close at $5.71, and Chicago was 4.5 cents lower at $5.78 per bushel. Cotton futures inched higher at the closing bell. We had December futures up 65 points as they closed the day at 74.09. Livestock futures all showed some strength. December live cattle were 57.5 cents higher at $184.40 per hundredweight. November feeder cattle rose by 65 cents as they settled at $243.40 per hundred. December lean hog futures were also higher. They were up by a dime, closing at $74.97 per hundredweight. Class 2 milk futures, on the other hand, had a pretty rough session. When the closing bell finally rang, we had October futures down 51 points as they closed out today at 23.28. This has been Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
There's Craig Haugard, folks, with the Ag Report today. Always good to hear from Craig. All right, let's get to a question here. Grant, what do we have from Peter and Josie over in Arkansas?
Yeah, so from Peter and Josie, we have Seth, would military/defense type stocks be a pocket of opportunity in the Harris administration?
That's a good question, P&J. I see your thinking behind it. I appreciate your thinking behind it. I think you're thinking rightly. I can't say with certainty one way or the other, but common sense would tell me that it could be. Common sense would tell me it could be. I'll explain why. Now, before I do, let me just say it's prudent to stay calm. It's prudent to understand that you're going to see pockets of opportunity no matter which way the election goes, for sure. But the reason why I would say it potentially could be is because it's important to remember that, unfortunately, folks, and this is just the way it is, I'm not speaking doom and gloom, this is just the way that it is. One of the more insidious qualities in every president in my lifetime, with one glaring exception, every president in my lifetime, so since early 1990s, is a general spirit of warmongering. Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, and Biden have all been general warmongers. That's my opinion. You may disagree with me, but there have been consistent wars with each of those administrations to a degree. I'll give you an example of this. Probably the most harmless of that group, maybe the second most harmless, would be George Bush Jr. Many Republicans loved him when he was in office. Some may think that being a peacetime president is actually a lot easier than being a wartime president, and I respectfully disagree. I think being a wartime president is one of the easiest, most opportunistic jobs in the world. I'll give you an example. George Bush came into office early 2001. 9 months later, September 11th happened. What happened after that? The country was unified for a little bit. And Bush was seen by both sides as a courageous leader, military leader, one who was going to strike hard and strike fast. And so what happened is, you have a state of emergency that can be declared. You have profit off of wartime efforts. The president can gain power. He can strengthen the military. I can't tell you how many thousands of young millennial men I can remember from this time period who were inspired from the 9/11 attacks, inspired by what they saw to join the military and ended up serving in the American wars in the Middle East. Now, this is kind of an ugly description of it, folks, but I think it's one that we have to see that is honestly true here, is that during a war, a president can basically grab as much power as he wants. And unfortunately, today's uniparty, we would call them spineless weasels. Many Democrats, some Republicans. I personally think that some of the folks that we've talked about before, Bush being one of them, Mitt Romney being another one, might be included in this list. They love nothing more than to be president during a war. Nikki Haley, I think, is like that too in some ways. There's something easy about being president during a war where you can capitalize on opportunities. Now, I'm not trying to say that they're all evil. I'm not saying that at all. But I think these guys know this. I think Kamala Harris would fall in line with this as well. The one president in our lifetime, my lifetime, since the early 90s, who would not fall in line with this and would not qualify for this distinction is Donald Trump, the one that Kamala just so happens to be running against. I think during the 4 years of the Trump presidency, we actually saw peace through strength. Trump was not interested in going into foreign wars and spending millions and trillions of American dollars to fund foreign wars, to send our soldiers over there, to fund weapons, to do all that stuff. Trump actually wanted peace. This is not a promotion of one candidate or the other, just calling it like it is. So all that to say, Peter and Josie, I think that your assessment is right on. And we'll have to see, of course. I can't predict that. I don't know if that'll be a pocket of opportunity, but it's something to keep an eye on for sure. So it's a good question. I appreciate you asking that. It's very good stuff. I wanted to get to a headline here to change the topic just a moment. So Gen Z and millennials are increasingly doom spending. We have seen this headline before, folks, on the show. About 6 or 7 months ago, I think, we talked about this headline. Evidently, the trend is increasing. So if you don't know, doom spending is basically splurging on luxury items and lavish vacations without saving any money because you are worried about money. So your fear of money is kind of sending you into a doom and gloom mentality where you just spend on whatever you want because I guess you're thinking, well, I'm going to lose it all anyway, so I might as well enjoy myself a little bit. Pessimism about the economy. There's a senior lecturer of finance at King's Business School said this past week, young people who are chronically online are fed a steady diet of bad news that fosters a sense of fatalism, fueling a live-in-the-moment mentality that then leads to reckless spending. We saw a study earlier this year on the show found 27% of Americans were doom spending to cope with stress, 35% of Gen Zers, 43% of millennials. That's almost half of millennials are doom spending. And the results showed 96% of Americans are worried about the current state of the economy. So a few lessons for our young audience here. First, please don't spend your time chronically online, as this article says, okay? Put the phone down. Leave it on the charger. Treat your cell phone like the phone it is and nothing else. I think that's a really good thing for us to do. There's a lot of, you can look at your mobile banking on your phone. You can have the Bible app on your phone. Those are all, the Bible app's great. Mobile banking can be good. They're all good things. But I think it's good practice for us to start treating our phones like phones again. And we just use them to call people or text people. Because we spend so much time on social media and we're getting fed such garbage and nonsense, especially for young people. So get off your phone, first lesson. Second lesson, don't be a doom spender. Don't do this. This is the equivalent of, imagine if I don't eat very well and I have a doctor that comes to me and says to me, hey, listen, you're going to die if you keep doing this. You need to start eating better. And my reaction is to become hopeless and to say, well, I'm going to die anyway, so I'm just going to start eating really badly. That's not a good thing to do, okay? Take a deep breath. Here's a better thing to do. Take a deep breath first. Work hard. Live within your means. Make some money. Be generous. Learn from your mistakes. Invest well. Seek help when you need it. Invest with financial issues. Tithe. Make sure you're doing that and leave the results up to God. I think that's the antidote to doom spending. Interesting show for sure today, folks. Doom spending and health freedom and military defense stocks and warmongering presidents. We covered it all on today's show, didn't we? God willing, we'll do it again tomorrow. It was a joy to be with you all. Once again, I'm Seth Udinsky, and thank you for joining us for Financial Issues. I want you to remember that it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards. And if the Lord is leading you to join us in our year-end campaign, visit financialissues.org/impact. financialissues.org/impact. We'll see you tomorrow for more.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.